The Velar is the Range Rover brand's long-awaited fourth model. Equally long-awaited has been a larger contender from the Solihull makers lineup, fully able to properly take on executive segment German premium SUV rivals in terms of tarmac drive dynamics. This, apparently, is that car. Stylishly packaged, beautifully built, and on paper at least, very desirable indeed. Under the skin, the Velar shares most of its engineering with the Jaguar F-Pace SUV. But it's marginally larger and heavier and positions you more commandingly at the wheel. The rear-biased four-wheel drive system, the ZF 8-speed auto gearbox, and the basic passive springed adaptive damping suspension setup are all borrowed from Jaguar 2, as are the engines, with the bulk of the Velar range built around 4-cylinder, 2-litre Ingenium turbo units. For diesel buyers, there's a single-turbo D180 option and the twin-turbo D240 variant that we're trying here, a unit capable of 48.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 154 grams per kilometre of CO2. Petrol people get twin-turbo P250 and P300 variants, the figures after the P and D model designations referencing the braked horsepower in each case. We'd be tempted, though, to try and stretch to one of the 3-litre V6 variants, either the P380 petrol, which shares its stirring supercharged engine with a Jaguar F-Type sports car, or, more likely, the potent D300 diesel. Another advantage of having the V6 is that, as standard, it gives you a key Velar feature, four-corner air suspension, that emphasises this car's most impressive attribute, excellent ride quality. This, along with impressive refinement, is key to this Range Rover model's exemplary long-distance cruising ability. It's not so comfortable, though, when being hurried through the bends, though, as you'd expect, it's a big improvement on its larger showroom stablemates in that regard. Achieving these standards in tarmac territory inevitably means you can't tow as much in a Velar or tackle as extreme off-road territory as you could in, say, a Range Rover Sport. But the off-piste drive dynamics you do get still make this car far more capable in the rough than its premium SUV rivals, helped by various terrain response driving modes and additional ride height made possible by the air suspension. Even a casual glance tells you that this is a Range Rover. And there's a reason for that, most of it wrapped up in traditional cues now expected from any of the brand's models. The clamshell bonnet, the floating roof, and a demeanour suggesting this car could conquer the Eiger before lunch. Yet the Velar is also described as avant-garde and simply elegant by its designer Jerry McGovern. And you know what? He's right. You see this best in profile, where the cleverness behind this design becomes clear. It's lower and longer than its larger and smaller Range Rover brand stablemates, with a lower roof height and a longer wheelbase relative to its 4.8 metre length. Time to take a seat inside. These door handles are certainly neat, with levers that incorporate a tiny button, a touch upon which sees them gliding out to meet your hand as you seek to enter and take a seat in one of the most distinctive cabins ever to emerge from a British factory. Get comfortable in the elevated Sports Command driving position, and you'll notice the two high-definition 10-inch central touchscreens of this model's freshly developed Touch Pro Duo infotainment system. These offer you the ability to better configure the functions that you want to prioritise. For example, it's perfectly possible for the driver to view a navigation map on the upper display while your passenger adjusts media settings on the one below. You simply can't do that with the single monitor that rivals offer. Plusher models also get another all-digital screen in the instrument binnacle, a 12.3-inch interactive driver display that gives you lots of configurable options controlled by touch-sensitive switches on the steering wheel. As for cabin quality, well, hidden cheaper plastics are in evidence if you really go looking for them, but broadly, what's on offer here meets the high standards set by a fully fledged plutocrat Range Rover, which is praise indeed. Time to take a seat in the rear. The design team didn't just borrow the chassis of this model from a Jaguar F-Pace, but also copied the way that model uses it to prioritise boot capacity over rear seat legroom, which means in this case that there's actually a bit less space for knees and legs than you get in something like a shorter and much cheaper Audi Q5. Though the difference isn't huge, and certainly not enough to be a deal breaker for likely owners who'll never have to sit here. Right, let's finish with a look at the boot. Sure enough, as promised, the cargo area looks large, though in reality it isn't quite as big as Land Rover's stated 632-litre figure suggests it might be. If you do need to push everything forward, then the seats fold to reveal a large area that, though not completely flat, is certainly spacious, with up to 1,731 litres of capacity, or 1,690 litres if you have that full spare wheel on board. Until Land Rover launched the Velar, few would have thought that there was a need for this SUV in the Solihull company's range. Yet now it's hard to imagine the lineup without it. Chief designer Jerry McGovern reckons this model brings a new dimension of glamour, modernity and elegance to the brand. And if you agree that to be true, you'll probably also think, as we do, that this car does the same thing as part of its chosen take on the premium SUV segment. If in the past you've usually driven a premium German executive saloon, but always liked the idea of a Range Rover, then this is your car. And if that's the case, a whole new ownership dimension awaits.